What if I told you that luck in business is not a fluke, but a formula? Hi, I'm Park Howell, and we'll teach you that lucky formula today on this special edition of the Business of Story. If you feel like your stories don't always land right the first time and you feel lucky when they do, then I have a narrative formula for you that leading business communicators are using to excel through the stories they tell.
Hi, I'm Greg Head. In the last 30 years, I've been growing little software company startups into larger software companies as an entrepreneur and marketer. And these days, the biggest problem for little tech startups is getting enough attention in the world and then converting that attention into happy customers and growing revenues. It's a communication problem. We all know that storytelling is at the heart of communications and sales and marketing. But I've always struggled with complex storytelling processes. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around 15 or 7 or 9 step storytelling models, even though I know how it works. Which is why my world changed when Park Howell introduced to me the ABT 3-step magical storytelling process that always works. It's the most powerful communication tool and process I've ever used. I use it every day in my companies and with the tech startups I work with, and I see it in every message that makes its way through to me outside in the world. So I recommend that you connect with Park and the business and learn about the ABT from the Business of Story and use it. Everybody could use it in your business when you're communicating anything to anybody. Check it out. Did you see how I used the ABT there? Good luck.
Hey Park, it's Jen. I am making this video to tell you about the impact of the ABT on my career and, quite frankly, the way I speak. It is probably the most powerful communications tool in my toolbox. You know, the A, setting the scene, the B, the tension, the T, the resolution. It sets me up for success every single time. It never gets tired because it is the most effective way of setting people up for what I want to communicate and having it resonate. I just can't say enough, Park, about it. So thanks.
Hey Park, I just got your story prompt video, and I know you know this story, but I've been in the media and marketing game for 35, 40 years, and I've probably conducted hundreds of marketing strategy sessions and branding sessions and positioning exercises and workshops, and I've employed and deployed lots of different frameworks over the years to help facilitate my clients. But I can tell you with certainty, the ABT process that you taught me is by far the most effective and the fastest way to get to message clarity. You know that old saying, genius is making the complex simple? Well, I think that's the ABT to me, and therefore I use it on every assignment I'm on with a client now, right from the start. And of course, there's nobody better than you at facilitating this.
So stop relying on luck with your messaging and start using the ABT Agile Narrative Framework to make your messages land right the first time, every time. I'll show you how in my new quick online course, The ABTs of Agile Communications, and you'll find it at businessofstory.com/ABT. You'll learn this messaging marvel that will move you from winging it with your communications to winning it every time with the stories you tell. That's businessofstory.com/ABT. Our guest today knows a thing or two about luck. In fact, it took one of the lowest moments in his life to learn that luck is not a fluke, but a formula he has used to build some remarkable business success.
I was sitting in front of a stack of bills, and the feeling of, despair and that kind of pit in your stomach and that sensation of loss. You don't know what you're going to do. So for 6 months, I was sitting on my couch in the woe is me phase, and it was pretty dark and brutal, and almost to a point where, I was going to start drinking in the afternoon. I didn't get that far, but I would have to say depression, definitely high anxiety. And but one day I woke up and I can't tell you what it was, other than probably I'd had enough of being quote unquote a loser, and I said, this is it, it's enough, I'm not a loser. I was programmed right when I grew up, and I'm a winner, so I'm gonna figure this thing out.
Mark Lachance, author of The Lucky Formula, How to Stack the Odds in Your Favor and Cash In on Success, shares how you can turn your hard work into great fortune by triggering a lot of luck along the way. Mark is currently the CEO and lead investor of Maxi Media, Inc., one of the largest TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, and Google display network performance marketing agencies in the world. Currently, Maxi Media is the #1 advertiser in terms of monthly spend on the TikTok platform in Canada and top 10 in North America. In 2016, Mark successfully sold Evo Payments International Canada, an end-to-end payment solutions provider and merchant acquirer, which he founded in 2009. But here's the thing. He guided the company from its inception with 1 employee to over 200 employees across Canada. Prior to founding Evo, Mark was one of the founding members and president of VersaPay, Inc., a payment solutions provider, which was taken public in 2010. Before joining VersaPay, Mark was a founding member of Pivotal Payments, which is now a multi-billion-dollar public company. He helped set the foundation and drive the company's sales and revenues before his successful exit from the company in 2006. Now, Mark has made several other highly successful investments in various industries such as payments, cryptocurrencies, marketing, nutrition, fitness, and sport. And over the past 25 years, he has invested in and consulted for dozens of other ventures, which have resulted in highly positive returns. In his new book, The Lucky Formula, Mark asks readers to look around themselves. Most people are waiting for something to happen, a lucky break, a random chance. The reason is irrelevant, but the flaw of waiting is, well, fatal. The majority of people delay their dreams and goals hoping and wishing for the perfect time to upgrade their lives, but not everyone is waiting. Mark discovered a proven process for engineering a high-performance life. By integrating this formula on a daily basis, he created a culture of winning both personally and professionally. Today, you'll learn about Mark's proven luck formula that he boiled down to an equation. I plus E plus A equals luck. You're also going to learn how you can stack the odds in your favor every single morning, and how you can immediately overcome imposter syndrome, the arch villain to manifesting a lucky break. French chemist Louis Pasteur, best known for his work in pasteurization, famously said, "Luck favors the prepared mind." So prepare yourself for the good fortune you deserve on today's show with Mark Lachance. Mark, welcome to the show, man.
It's great to be here, Park. Thanks for having me.
Where are you coming to us from?
I am in South Florida right now, so it's nice and sunny outside.
Nice and sunny. You don't have any hurricanes creeping up on you. I guess maybe you were a little early for hurricane season quite yet.
Yeah, I haven't lived through one of those yet. We just moved here in August, so I haven't seen it. Well, let's see if we get one this summer.
And where did you move from?
We were living in Canada. I was in Montreal, Quebec, originally from the U.S., but I moved there about 21 years ago and decided to come back to the sunny U.S.
And why did you end up in Canada?
Well, I had an opportunity to get equity in a company, and it was the second payments business that I was ever in, and it was actually the first opportunity to lead a very large sales team, or to actually build a very large sales team and grow it, and learn blitz scaling, which maybe we'll talk about in this in this podcast.
Oh yeah, I mean, come on, blitz scaling. You can't throw a word like that out without covering it. Well, let's talk about that in a second. But you've also got a new book out, and The Lucky Formula, How to Stack the Odds in Your Favor and Cash In on Success. So besides your last name being French for lucky, which I think is awesome, Lachance,
Well, doesn't
what
that
is it?
Park? Doesn't that give me the right to write a book about luck?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But what is it about luck that has worked for you? Because obviously your success isn't all about luck.
No, I think in my case or in this case, you could substitute the word luck for success. And there is a formula to get lucky slash to be successful. And one of them actually, strangely enough, is my nickname forever has been Lucky because I grew up in Connecticut. And early on, one of the neighborhood kids learned that our name means lucky in French and started calling me Lucky. So in some weird way, I had it lodged in my head that I actually am lucky, and great things will happen to me because I can get lucky no matter what. So, in a weird way, I think my name has actually helped my success.
Is that just self-talk and mindfulness? Or, I mean,
There you
that
go.
sounds kind of woo-woo, or is it in doing so, the universe is answering to you? I guess that sounds woo-woo too, but with a name like Lachance, I mean, that's pretty good.
But if you believe in visualization and you believe in sort of creating your own destiny, maybe that's the case. Maybe because I thought my name is Lucky and I am lucky, then I got lucky.
Well, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how that has informed who you are and what you do today.
Well, I think I'd have to say a big part of my success, not only my success, but my two brothers' success has been our parents and our upbringing. We grew up in Connecticut, which was not let's call it not an ice hockey hotbed. But my two brothers came out of there, and I don't know if you're a hockey fan, Park, but I'm a huge ice hockey fan. We played growing up, and one of my brothers was drafted by the New York Islanders, fourth overall. He played 13 years in the big leagues, and my other brother was drafted by the St. Louis Blues, and he played 10 years professionally in Europe. So, coming from an area that's not a hockey hotbed, and sort of writing our goals out. My father sat us down when we were 10 years old, and he literally wrote down our goals. And I don't know if you saw, this is funny. If you saw King Richard, have you seen the movie yet?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about the
About,
Williams sisters.
exactly. Williams' sister's dad, King Richard.
Exactly. So we can call my father King Guy because he sat down and wrote down the goals for us. And literally what he wrote down, almost 100% of that happened. It was, we had written Olympics, we had written full ride to university, we had written success playing hockey, professional leagues, success in business, and all of that came true. So we can call him King Guy.
But it takes more than just writing it down, right? You got to have belief, but then you also got to take action.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, action is if we get into my formula, you're going to see that the formula itself is I plus E plus A, which is the A is action. And we'll get into that in a bit.
Well, let's do that right now. And then I want to circle back and learn a little bit more about your highs and lows of your business acumen and training and what got you here. But let's first cover that algorithm because I found that interesting too when I was on your website watching some of your videos. What does I, E, and A? There's one more in there. It's I
there's
plus
I,
E plus.
There's plus A equals L, which is luck.
That's it. All right. Take us through that. What is it? How do we use it?
So I is internal mastery. That means mastering yourself internally, which I'll get into in a second. E is external mastery, mastering yourself externally. And A is taking action in, various different areas of your life. And then obviously the L is luck. So we can dive into the I right now if you want. So I'll give you a couple of examples of mastering yourself internally. So a question for you, Park, is when you wake up in the morning, what do you say to yourself? What's your self-talk? Many people wake up in the morning and they say, oh no, it's going to be another day, terrible day, blah, blah, blah. Well, in my book, I teach you how to have positive self-talk and how to tell yourself that you are a fearless leader and you are a winner, and you are through affirmations. So my affirmations, I have 9 affirmations. A couple of them are, I am a fearless leader. And I say that, repeat that. I am a winner. I am lucky. I am awesome. I'm an amazing father. I'm an amazing boss. And I go on and on. But so how many people actually do that? And probably a small percentage of the people. So that's one, your self-talk. And then the narrative throughout the day. What do you tell yourself? What's the narrative you're telling yourself all day long? Here's a great one for you. Have you ever heard people say, "Oh, just my luck"? Have you ever heard that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, oh, it's just my luck that that happened to me. I think that's, to me, the most demeaning phrase you could say to yourself, or disempowering phrase you could ever say to yourself. So you switch that around to say just my luck, and just say next time we're going to do better, or something like it. It's about changing your mindset to focus on what you can do, and not what you can't do or what you haven't done. So that's in a nutshell. And meditation is a huge piece for me. It's, to me, I think if you read my book, you're going to see that that's my kind of secret weapon or superpower. And if I can give you a story around that one, I started meditation in, I think it was 2012. And before that time, I'd launched a business in 2009. And in the payments business, which I was in, payments being like Stripe or PayPal, it takes anywhere between 20 and 25 months to break even. So I was a 30% shareholder in a company, and I had my US partners invest a tremendous amount of money in me. And right around month 12, 13, 14, 15, I started waking up at 3 in the morning, just getting these crazy self-talk that, I'm going to get fired, and, the board's going to let me go, and we're not cash flow positive yet. But, like I just explained to you, cash flow positive happens month 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Wasn't even close to that, but the self-talk. So what meditation did for me was literally kill that self-talk. So kill that negative self-talk, and it kind of extinguished it. And again, that's why I call that my secret weapon, or my superpower, meditation. And that's kind of a nutshell on internal mastery. And then you get into external mastery,
Let's
which
talk
is
about that for just one more second.
Sure.
You'd started with that rhetorical question of what's your self-talk, Park, when you get up in the morning. And I was thinking about that. And it's typically, optimistic. It's like, all right, got a new day, got a lot of cool stuff happening. Here we go. If I don't have a lot on my plate in a given day, like I didn't coming out of our 4th of July here, July 5th was pretty quiet. My self-talk then becomes, oh no, I don't have enough to do versus, hey, I am completely free to be able to really focus on this initiative or whatever. And so I have to catch myself with that negative self-talk. But isn't it natural, human beings having this negativity bias, that we are almost always going to start from a place of negativity unless we have done that mindfulness training or have
Absolutely.
caught ourselves doing that? Or one of the best tips, I use the Breathe app, which I just absolutely love. And I will use it in the morning. I'll use it at bed when I go to bed at night. And I'll use it for a Nidra yoga nap where you never completely fall asleep, but it just totally calms your brain. In fact, I'm going to do one right after this episode because I do them in the afternoon. And I, like you said, Mark, I have noticed such a difference in me being able to ward off those negative gremlins that are going to show up uninvited every single day. And you can actually invite them into the house, say, hi, how you doing? Now it's time to leave, set them out the back door. And you've got this whole new mindset, and it works really, really well. It takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight, but with repeat training, you can really strengthen that internal talk, those stories you tell yourself.
Absolutely. And, that's amazing. I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you very much, because I do something similar. So we're on the same page. There's other tricks, like, for example, acknowledgement, right? Acknowledging, let's say you're sitting down and you believe yourself to be a fraud, or you believe that, you're sort of the imposter syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to get around that, which is called acknowledgement. Sit down and write 20 things that you've done unbelievable in your life. And then when you get that imposter syndrome, you look back at your list and you're going to be surprised. You're like, wow, I guess I really am pretty awesome. I guess I have done some great things in my life. And, that's a way. I got that one out of a book called Mind Power by John Kehoe. And it was pretty awesome. And the tips and tricks in that book are through the roof. And actually, you'll recognize some of those in my internal mastery.
Hey, we're all inspired by other thinkers. Nothing wrong with that.
That's right. That's right.
So what about the external now? We've got internal. How do you show
Okay.
up and master your external self?
So external is your body, being partly your body. So, for example, your nutrition. If you're loading up on sugars, salts, and fats, are you going to be at the top of your game? are you going to be a 10 on 10 in energy all day long? And I'm just going to tell you the answer is absolutely no. And I'll give you a story around that. So when I first moved to Montreal in 2001, way back before some of your listeners probably were born, in 2001, myself and the CEO would go to lunch every single day. We'd have these big, massive lunches and a dessert every single lunch, right? Literally this big, let's say a big steak or a big chicken or a big fish, always with dessert. We couldn't skip our dessert. And I would get back into my office and literally probably for about an hour be comatose on my couch or on my desk. And so my energy levels, which would start pretty high in the morning, would drop to a 2 on 10. Right. But fast forward to today, I've learned all about nutrition and supplementation and, to get rid of the sugars, salts, and fats. And my energy levels are 10 on 10 all day long. So do you think you're going to get more lucky 2 on 10 or 10 on 10? So, and I think you obviously know the answer to that. So that's one external thing that you have to master. And the other thing, there's 10 of them, but a few others are, working out. Do you work out? How often do you work out every week? Are your endorphins flowing? Are you on top of your game? Because not only is it physical, but it's also mental, right? So the physical enhances your mental thought process. And then another great one on external mastery is your circle of influence. You probably heard of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn famously said, you're the aggregate or the average of the 5 people you hang around with, which is flat out proven, tested, true. So think about if you're hanging around 5 people that think like you do, right? That think, I'm going to tackle that mountain. I'm going to climb to the top of Everest. No problem. You're going to think that way. But if you think about if you hang around with 5 people who have a broken mindset, a poor mindset, a scarcity mindset, you're absolutely going to be that way. So who you hang around with is who you become flat out. And, there's many other external factors to master, but those are just a few that are in the book.
Yeah, but what if you got a good pal that you're hanging around because you just love him, good guy doing his thing or a gal doing their thing, but they don't have the ambition. Maybe they are a little bit negative or a lot negative, and they just don't seem to be going anywhere. What do you do? Do you jettison them out of your life, or how do you manage that? Because you actually care for these people.
But you ask yourself the question, is spending time with this person actually elevating me in any way, or is it disempowering me in any way? And if it's disempowering, I would limit your time. A lot of people, when I say that, they say, well, my mom is negative. I'm like, I get that. Parents are sometimes negative and so you limit your time. You can't discard your family, but you have to limit your time because I'd have to say is your positive mindset or your creative or your constructive mindset is pretty fragile and can be taken out. You said it earlier, and I'll give you a quote from Dr. Srini Pillay, and he says that the negative is first attracted to the mind, right? So you need to get rid of. I actually worked with him for a couple of years at Harvard University, but and he taught me visualization, and I've got a lot of stories around how I actually used visualization, which is another external thing to master.
All right, give us one. Give us a visualization story.
I'll give you one from when I was a kid. How about that? When my father taught me how to visualize from Think and Grow Rich. So I was a kid. I was actually 12 years old because I was a peewee in hockey. And the night before I had a game, it was 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning. So the night before I said, I'm going to score 3 goals tomorrow. And I literally kept on visualizing how I was going to score those goals. One was going to be low stick side. The other one was going to be through the leg, and the other one was going to be over the shoulder. And I'm not kidding you. I scored 3 goals in that exact same manner. It was insane. It's pretty cool. But the question I have for myself is, why don't I always do that? Right.
I was playing golf with some friends, playing on this one course down in Scottsdale, and they had this one particularly rigorous par 5. And I think I had maybe parred it once in my life, but it was typically always at least a bogey, if not a double, if not a triple. And we were talking about visualization, and we were kind of just joking around about it. And someone says, oh, it's all woo-woo and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, let's put it to the test. And I just started focusing, and they started laughing at me. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I am focusing, visualizing a birdie on this par 5 that eats me every single time I come through here. And by God, Mark, if I didn't get a birdie, I hit a beautiful drive. I hit a beautiful second shot. I had hit a decent third shot, and I had a long putt, and I drained this long putt. And I'm going, oh my God, why don't I do this all the time?
Well, I tell you, I don't believe it's woo at all. I believe, there's a way to program sort of the ether or the universe to get what you want. I mean, think about this. I'm a kid who grew up probably lower middle class to a working class family, a father in construction. So how could I be successful? How could I be worth X amount of millions? How could, how is that even possible? I didn't go to Ivy League school. I didn't, I was the first actually to graduate university from my whole family, 17 cousins. So how does that happen? I'm going to tell you, it happens because, partly visualization, partly all the other things in the book, but I'm going to tell you that it works, and I believe it works, and even my father's the proof, right? So he visualized that his kids would be successful. We're all successful. I mean, we wrote it down when we were 10 years old. My brother played in the Olympics, for Christ's sakes. We're from Connecticut. There's no ice hockey in Connecticut. My brother played on the U.S. Olympic hockey team. How does that happen?
That's so cool. So you've got internal mastery, external mastery, plus what? Take action?
Action. Taking action, and I'll give you examples. So I'm looking at my bookcase right there, and I see a book called Extreme Ownership, and it's all about leadership. Okay, so you can read, part of the external mastery is doing personal development, but you can read all you want. If you don't take action on the stuff that you're reading and the stuff that you're putting in your brain, then nothing's going to happen. So for example, so extreme ownership is all about, there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And I've met so many people, let's say sales executives or managers or VPs that are continually blaming their staff. We recently had somebody in my company refer to his team as the B team. I'm like, really? They're the B team, right? Okay, so guess how long that gentleman lasted? Not that long. But the point is, if you have to refer to your team as the B team, you're not doing the job. You're absolutely not doing the job. And that book actually is a great story in that book. I don't know if you read it, Park, but
No,
I would get it. It's by Jocko Willink, a Navy SEAL. He's got a great story that he talks about during Hell Week, during SEAL Hell Week. I'm sure you heard about that, where they have rigorous, like crazy training. I don't know if I could ever make it through. I probably couldn't. And they have an obstacle course, and they literally run the pontoon boats up and down the coast, paddle them out, paddle them in. So it's an obstacle course that they do frequently. And I think the teams are made up of, 6 or 7 SEALs, and team 6, and correct, forgive me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but team 6 would always crush it, and team 2 would be way back in the back, way back. So then after a while, they said, hey, listen, we better do something, because the leader of team 2, we're going to get rid of him if he doesn't change this around. So what they did is they took the leader of team 2, the loser, put him with team 6, and put the winning leader with team 2. Guess what happened? Neck and neck. Team 2 and team 6 were neck and neck. And that's all about leadership, right? So the team 6, the winning team, they learned how to become a leader. They felt what it was to be a leader by their leader. So when they had the poor leader step up, they didn't allow that to affect them. And then the positive leader, who I really think was the gentleman, David Goggins. I think that was him. But anyway, so Goggins will say, went to team 2 and totally crushed it. And why? Because it's all about leadership. It's all about what the guy or the gal in front does and says, and how they inspire their team.
And taking action. Now, you've had a lot of success throughout your life, but nobody has a ton of success without a lot of failures along the way. Can you take us to a moment, Mark, where you did have a failure, and in looking back on it, you learned from it, and maybe that's even where this algorithm for success and luckiness came from? But in looking at a failure you had, dissecting it for us, and why that happened, what you learned from it, and how maybe you coach how not to have that happen to you in your new book.
Well, I call it my biggest colossal failure of my life. It happened in 2006. I was fortunate to sell the shares in the company that I launched with the CEO that I told you about, the dessert eating CEO. And so within 5 years, we built at the time, the company was valued at around $30 million. So I sold my shares in that company, and I was sitting on a pretty good amount of capital. And then I had, wanted to go out and start my own company, start my own payments company. And I was going out raising money and came across this gentleman who actually flipped the script on me. He flipped the pitch on me. He got me into real estate. So he got me to take my, I'll call it winnings, and put it all on red in a real estate deal, literally all on red. And if you remember the year 2007, 2008, you're going to remember that, that wasn't a great time to invest in real estate. But not
Global
only that,
recession kicking in. Yep.
exactly. So here's another one that sticks in my brain. So when I walked into his house, the second time I met him, he had no furniture in his in his house. And so I guess that's one of the learning experiences. Next time you go walk into somebody that you're going to potentially partner with, and they don't have furniture in their house, let that be a red flag to you. Or
So-
when you go to dinner and their credit card declines, that's another red flag for you, Park.
So did you get hoodwinked into this deal? And
pretty
then
much,
looking
yeah.
back, you lost a ton of your capital. What did
I
you learn
lost
from it
all of my
besides
capital.
everything? Okay. So how did that not just knock you flat on your back forever? How did you rebound from that?
Well, I was in the beginning of my book. Literally, the first chapter talks about how I was sitting in front of a stack of bills, and with that pit in my, with the feeling of despair, and that kind of pit in your stomach, and that that sensation of loss, and you don't know what you're going to do. So for 6 months, I was sitting on my couch in the woe is me phase, and it was pretty dark and brutal, and almost to a point where I was going to start drinking in the afternoon. I didn't get that far, but it was, I would have to say, depression, definitely high anxiety. But one day I woke up, and I can't tell you what it was, other than probably I'd had enough of being quote unquote a loser, and I said, this is it, it's enough, I'm not a loser. I was programmed right when I grew up, and I'm a winner, so I'm gonna figure this thing out. And it was just, something hit me. I can't tell you what it was. I don't know what it was, but something hit me, and I had enough. I hit bottom, is what it was. And that's often when you speak to people in weight loss that lose a ton of weight, they hit bottom. They hit that that low point in their lives. So I think that was it. And lo and behold, hit that bottom, and got on the phone, and started making something happen.
What did you do next? I mean, what was your next enterprise?
Well, I figured, I said, look, I have pretty much $0 to my name. I'm close to bankruptcy, so I have to get back into what I know, which is payments. Right? I knew that business.
Online
well.
payments.
Well, actually, it was both online and brick and mortar. So the year was it was about 2008, and actually, it was a fortunate opportunity. So I was lucky. You remember the name? I was lucky that the Canadian banks were just deregulating, so they were allowing private companies to get in the game. And when I was sitting on my couch in despair, I finally picked up the phone and called a few people that I had made a lot of money for, or helped, did great business with in payments. And lo and behold, one of them had a buddy who had just partnered with a Canadian bank, and they got the portfolio of a Canadian bank. They were allowed to be their payment arm, and they were looking for somebody in Canada to run it. And happened that I'm in Canada. I had built a massive organization 2 years earlier, and I was the guy for the job. But the crazy thing is, I needed $200,000 to invest in the business. I didn't have a penny to my name. So that's another story for another time. But I got creative on how I raised that cash, and and look, you dig deep and you make it happen. That's kind of my message here.
What else in your book do you have? You've got some different things that people can do. Can you take us through a framework or two, or a portion of your frameworks in there, to get people thinking about this, that they could maybe even apply immediately after listening to this show?
Well, one thing, the key thing is your thoughts, right? So you can apply this right away. First, actually, hold on. Before we go there, I'm going to give your listeners a gift. So this is what they can do. Take action. They can go to my website, theluckyformula.com/quiz. Again, theluckyformula.com/quiz, and they can take a quiz and they can find out how lucky or unlucky they are. So it'll give you a score from 0 to 100. And that's called your lucky score. So that's number one. That's the first action everybody can take. They can find out where they're ranked. And then number two, so I'll give you another tip. So when you wake up in the morning, I'll give you my morning routine, my powerful morning routine. And it's funny. It's funny because I have a client out in California who says that he listened to my book and he put into place cleaning your tongue, which is a crazy thing, but I'm going to tell you why. Because overnight you generate, it's called ama. The Indian medicine calls it ama, but it's basically toxins that collect on your tongue. So first thing in the morning, clean that off with a scraper, a tongue scraper, and you're going to feel amazing. It's just one little tip and trick. And another trick is, so first, before any of that, you wake up and you start affirming to yourself, like I was saying earlier, I am a fearless leader. I am a fearless leader. I am amazing. I am awesome. So if you want to have an awesome day tomorrow, wake up, get up right away. Don't lie in bed. Don't just lounge around. Get up and start talking to yourself in the positive way. Okay, that's one. Then obviously go do your duties with in the toilet, whatever you have to do. Get up, stand in front of the mirror with this crazy fake smile if it has to be in the beginning, and look in the mirror for 2 minutes. So first is the positive self-talk. Second is smile in the mirror for 2 minutes. Right? So that's simple. Anybody can do that tomorrow. Anybody can do that. You might not be able to do the 20 things I ask you to do, but you could do those 2 little things, right? 2 little things. Start off with that. And then when you're in the shower is the best time to visualize. So visualize something awesome that you want to accomplish in that day. Anything. Visualize if you have a coworker that you don't like, visualize smiling to that coworker and saying hello, and you're going to see that it's basically going to change the relationship quickly. So those 3 or 4 things.
Well, you got 5 in there because you got the tongue scraper. I don't want to forget the tongue scraping.
Tongue scraper, brush your teeth. Don't forget about that one. Visualize, affirm to yourself that you're awesome, and then smile in the mirror. There you go.
Now, Mark, a lot of people will listen to that and say, that's all well and good, but it just sounds too woo-woo. I got to get up, have my bowl of cereal or whatever, have my coffee, and just get to work. I mean, did you ever have that problem? Did you ever have to overcome that sort of manly man thinking and say, no, dude, actually, this stuff works?
So I've done a ton of personal development over the last, let's say, 15 years, and I've spent a ton of money going to, all these types of events. And I'm just going to tell you that the successful people do things that work, and the non-successful people don't. So if people say it's too, okay, don't do it. That's all I can say. I'm not going to cry if you say, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, but it works for me. So, all I can tell you is it works for me.
I like it. I mean, it works for me too. I've not been the big affirmation guy. I don't know, for whatever reason. But I'm going to start trying that. I'm going to take your routine down. I'm going to have to run over to Walgreens and get a tongue scraper, apparently. Never heard of that, but it totally makes sense. What else in your book? Tell us a little bit more about how else can we get lucky through the stories we tell ourselves or the stories that we express to the world.
So in the book, it talks about how to stack the odds in your favor, right? Or luck on the back. It says luck is not a fluke, it's a formula. So if you continue to stack little things on top of each other. So here's a good example. So my editor, his name is Alex. Alex didn't understand either. He's like, look, I don't get that if you talk to me positively, how does that positively affect you, Mark? Okay, so I said, Alex, I'll give you an example. I said, look, I've read some of your stuff. I think you're a phenomenal writer. I think I enjoy your writing. It keeps me at the edge of my seat. I can't put your books down. You're amazing. And I kept on going and going. And you could just see him, pick up and elevate and feel amazing. And I said, now let me ask you a question, Alex. Even if you know what I'm doing to you, are you happy? Are you liking what I'm saying to you? He says, yes, absolutely. I said, okay. So is there a good chance, because I filled you up with awesome, awesome stories about yourself, is there a good chance that you're going to refer me to somebody? So you keep on doing that enough times, and people are going to like you. They just inherently like you. They don't know why, because you're telling them how awesome they are. So that is one little small tip to get things to come back at you 1,000-fold.
But
Right.
you've
So
got to be genuine in this,
for
right? I
sure,
mean, if you're
absolutely,
disingenuous going through, people are going to read through that
for
in a
sure,
heartbeat. So you got to really feel
absolutely,
it.
for sure. But I'm going to tell you is I did read Alex's stuff, and the reason he's my editor is because he was that good, and I wouldn't have been with him. So it was true and it was real, right?
Yeah.
And sales executives, if they're rock star sales reps, tell them. If they're rock stars at their job, tell them. So, for example, we have a star of the week every single week, right? We have a leadership call, which we had today at 11:30, which I run, and we go through, which I learned at strategic coach Dan Sullivan. You might know who he is. Anyway, so I learned that start every meeting out with a positive focus. So I have, for the first 5 minutes of the call, there's 65 people on the call. I go around the table or around the Zoom call, and I pick people out randomly. Tell me your win of the week. Tell me your win of the week. Tell me your win of the week. So it gets the call off on a positive leg. So people could say positivity is woo, but kind of works for me. So you could say whatever you want.
What other ways can you stack this luck in your favor? I really like that idea of just showing up and giving some kudos to someone that's really important to you and doing good work for you. What are some of the other things you can do to stack this in your favor?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Every time I go to a trade show, I just know inherently that I'm going to get serendipity is going to happen. I'm going to meet somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. So before you go to an event, set up meetings in advance, be prepared, and ask questions. Do you know somebody in this? Like if you're a good person, people want to refer you. So if I go back to my colossal failure, those 87 phone calls that I made, which I finally had a success, but most of those people ended up giving me referrals, help me hire my sales reps, help me raise capital, help me here, help me there. So if you're a good person, you could leverage your, let's say, your goodness wealth in the bank, right? So that goes the same for, when you're in an industry or you're at a trade show. If people like you, they're going to help you. It's simple. So I think that answers your
Yeah,
question. I hope it does.
it does. And what about, let's go back to that topic we talked earlier. If you are building a network and maybe in that network you've initially built, you thought you had some really good players in it, but they're really not. They're bringing you down in any way, shape, or form. How do you recommend, I guess, vetting that network? Removing some of those folks that you invited into your life and going out and finding the right people that are actually going to help you along as you help them in their journey.
Well, you're not going to hit 100 or 1,000. You're not going to bat 1,000. Even the best. Let's say if you're a baseball fan, probably the best baseball players hit 1 out of every 3 times they get a base hit. Right? They get on base.
Mm-hmm.
The best on base percentage is what, 400. So if you're an analytics guy, but anyway, so the point is you're going to make mistakes, but you have to know that. And I've been in many sales organizations. I built a pretty huge direct marketing business. And I built right now, my most recent endeavor is a company called Maxi Media, where we're almost up to 300 employees right now. And you're not going to hit a home run on every employee that you hire, but you have the ability to correct your mistake, right? So if you make a mistake, correct it, make the move, make the change, and teach that in your leadership team, right? So, I remember we've got the book, one of my fallbacks, it's up on the bookshelf over there, is Winning by Jack Welch.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of my favorite leadership books, and I refer to that all the time, and I teach that on our leadership calls. And he's got a strategy called differentiation. I don't necessarily love it, where he calls out, or used to call out 10% of the staff no matter what every year. I don't believe in that, but I do believe in calling out anybody who's negative and anybody who doesn't like to be on the leadership calls, or doesn't believe in the big vision, or is negative in any way. Get rid of those people. So, and anyway, the long answer to that question is, correct your mistakes and get rid of the people that don't fit your targets.
So before we started this interview, I thought it was really interesting because I asked you, what would you like to sell on today's show? Your new book, The Lucky Formula. And you're like, no, that's cool. I mean, if people want to come buy it, that's great. I'm not here to sell that. I'm here to meet a lot of interesting people. And so you go on a lot of shows to meet folks like me, which I thought was a really interesting question. I'd never heard that one before in 370 some episodes. So what do you look for in people that you want to surround yourself with? Are there 2 or 3 qualities that really stand out that you're getting the right person on your team?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's mindset. It's positive mindset for sure. Can't forget about positive. People hate that word for some reason, but it's can-do mindset, right? So can-do mindset is number 1. And then number 2 is, I almost say language, because I remember I had, and this is before I learned really about leadership. I remember I had a personal trainer. The guy was phenomenal. And the guy literally knows everything about nutrition and personal training, but he had this negative talk, this negative language. And I remember being in awe with the knowledge this gentleman had, and with the way he spoke and his delivery. But the content of what he said, I just felt bad. So I think I've developed a pretty good radar for that bad feeling due to language or due to negativity and delivery. So that's a huge piece for me. If you give underhanded compliments, or you're, constantly degrading people to make yourself feel better, that's not somebody I want around me at all. And you could feel that right away after you develop that.
And I guess if you, being a ubiquitous, you are that person with that negative language coming out, it's probably because you've got negative self-talk going in, and you can start correcting that through, again, mindset, meditation, affirmations, this sort of thing. And you can actually measure it, because now are you actually showing up with a positive mindset and positive languaging around what could really happen. And I suppose throwing out those gremlins again, the negativity gremlins that show up that say, hey, your job is to degrade this person here to make you feel better, where you can look at that and say, wait, I know what you're doing to me, brain. Get it out of here and go back to this positive way. And it's going to show up in how you speak, I suppose.
Absolutely. You hit it.
Yeah.
You must have studied this stuff, Park. I don't know. I think you did.
Well, I do. I look at a lot of it, and I am surrounded by a lot of people that are into it, and those that aren't. Those that are, I don't see it. Nothing replaces good old hard work, show up, perspiration, roll your sleeves up, and get after it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the take action part. But man, if you're not going about it with a positive, optimistic service mindset, I mean, that's the other thing that I think is really important too, is look, we're all in business to make money, and we want to make ample sums of money so we can live the lives we want. But doesn't it really come back to being in service to somebody? Because if you're not really servicing and providing an outcome for someone, the money's not going to show up. No one's going to pay you.
Absolutely.
So you got to start with that service mentality.
Absolutely. Agreed 100%. I like that.
At the end of one of my favorite podcasts on NPR, Guy Raz's How I Built This, he always asks the question, so how much of this was hard work and how much of this was luck? And it almost seems like, to a guest, it's a 50-50 thing. You work hard to make your own luck, but by God, when that luck shows up, you have to be ready and have the courage to quite often pounce on that. So would you agree with that, or what is the sentiment of your book? I haven't had a chance to get through it yet.
Yeah, I would think 50-50 is probably a pretty accurate guess, or accurate assumption. But I will say that you're not going to get lucky if you don't put in the hard work. You're not going to get lucky. So maybe that's actually a good question. But look, it's 50-50, but you're not going to get the other 50% if you don't do the first 50%. How about that for an answer?
I'll buy that. Yeah, The Secret. Remember when that movie came out and the little girl wanted a red bike, and all she had to do is put the good vibes out to the world, and a red bike showed up to her back door. Yeah, that's kind of BS. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I'm going to
get a little lucky.
But can I give you a crazy story around that?
Sure.
And I'm going to give you real numbers.
The crazier, the better.
I had read, I forget what book it is, but I think it may be a Joe Dispenza book. And he's like, listen, Visualize something and don't put a time on it, don't put a date on it, but something big is going to happen, right? So it could have been 2, 3, 4 weeks later. I go to the mailbox and I get a check from Revenue Quebec. And I'm like, what? $176,000. Like, how does this happen? But it was a settlement, and I completely, totally forgot about it because the Quebec government had fined us erroneously for close to $1 million, and that was their refund. But this is years later. This is 5 or 6 years later, and I get the refund in the mail. Now, is that because if I visualized something amazing it was going to happen, or was it going to happen anyway? Who knows? But it worked out pretty good. When's the last time you got $176,000 in the mailbox?
Yeah, no kidding. I do remember my wife and I, we were first married and we had a couple kids and we had zero money. I mean, nothing. And we were really didn't want to go into hockey with credit cards and that sort of thing. So we literally were sitting with a bank account of about $15, trying to feed these kids. We were, 4 or 5 days away from the next paycheck. And Michelle's car had a problem, a radiator problem that was going to cost $500. And we needed to take it in the next day. We were living in Phoenix, Arizona. That radiator's pretty important. And we sat there and said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I guess we're going to have to put on a credit card and just pay it off, over the course of the next month or two when we have some money. Well, she goes and she starts opening up the mail, and here's a check for $500 from the IRS. They had not paid us, reimbursed us in our taxes. Unbeknownst to us, they found their error of $500, and here's the exact amount of money we needed to get her car fixed the very next day. And I can tell you, Mark, that happened to us 3 or 4 times as a young married couple raising a family. When we needed, it was typically money because we had none, it would just show up at the most opportune times. It got to the point of we just expect it. It was so crazy.
There you go. So you have your stories as well. Awesome.
All right. Well, where can people learn more about you and the really interesting work you are doing around getting lucky and how to get even more lucky? Or is it luckier in our world?
There you go. I mentioned the quiz again. That's theluckyformula.com/quiz. I would start there. You can also go to theluckyformula.com, and you can also go to marklachance.com. So that's marklachance.com.
Lachance, yep.
Or on Instagram at Mr. Lucky Official. So MISTER Lucky Official. And that's about it. And if you want to LinkedIn, Mark Lachance on LinkedIn, you can find out, what I've done, what I'm doing.
Now, I went to your website and took the assessment. Is that the same as the quiz?
That's it. That's it. The quiz. Yeah,
same
exactly.
thing. So I scored a 92 out of 100.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. Good for you.
But I don't feel I'm still as lucky as I could be. So if
you have 8
percentage
points, by the way, Park, to enhance.
And so do you then teach folks that take this assessment, if they score lesser than that or much less or not in the area that they want to score in, do you give them practical advice of what to do?
Well, there's a book. Yeah, we do. I mean, you get an email with some tips and tricks, but there's a book called The Lucky Formula that you can read that'll give you all the tips and tricks that you can handle.
Well, that's awesome. All right, Mark, at the beginning of the show, we talked about blitz scaling. We promised to bring our listeners what in the heck that is and how to do it. So the floor is yours.
Uh-oh, here we go. Okay, so there's a book called Blitz Scaling, actually Blitz Scaling, by the founders of LinkedIn. And Reid Hoffman actually is his name. And so I picked that book up a couple of years ago. And lo and behold, I was actually practicing, let's call it probably 60 or 70% of what blitz scaling actually is. But it's taking a company and kind of, I'm going to call it reckless abandon, but not really. So it's literally taking all your free cash flow and pouring it back into growth, and understanding that you're going to have road bumps, you're going to have fires, you're going to have potholes that you hit. But you've got to, wade through it. Now, the idea of it is to gain market share fast. And it really came about in in Silicon Valley where, companies that were funded, X amount of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, needed to get their idea out before the competitors could catch them. So I kind of modified it for companies that aren't in that sort of VC space. And the way I modified it is I modified by saying, take all of your free cash flow. Don't worry about profits early on. Plow it back into growth, plow it back into, finding the best talent, media, purchasing media to drive in leads and anything that you need to do for growth, and understanding, again, you're going to make mistakes, but you course correct as you go along. And at points, you got to let those fires burn, and then fix them while you can. And so I can give you, in my career, 3 examples where we've gone from 0 to over 200 employees by employing what I call blitzscaling, my version of it, not really the Silicon Valley version. But so it's a tactic that can be employed by anybody. And you don't have to have millions of dollars in VC money. I've never taken VC money, actually, never, ever. And I've just used our profits and plowed it back in and plowed it back in. Oftentimes entrepreneurs are afraid to plow your profits back in. They have a lifestyle they have to, withhold. But if you want to grow and grow quickly, my advice is taking those profits and just pouring it back into the business and having that growth oriented mindset and no fear. So hopefully that answered your question.
What are the 3 examples you have?
So the first one is a company called Pivotal Payments. I joined Pivotal in late 2000. We took a company from 3 and built it to about 240 within about a 2-year process. And then, when I left in 2006, the company was over close to 1,000 employees, but we employed the same idea. We took profits and just plowed it back in, right into growth. And we blitzed our hiring process. Next one was a company called EVO Canada that I founded in 2009. We blitzed that one from 1 myself to 216 employees in about a year and a half. And then the most recent one is my current company, Maxi Media. And a funny story around that is myself and my chief operating officer, Jack, we were sitting there and we had only 6 employees at the time. And this is probably about 2.5 years ago. And I said, Jack, I'm tired of playing small. I can't stand the 6 people. We're going to blitz this. What does that mean? I said, we're just going to hire and hire and hire until you can't see anymore. And within 30 days, I think we had about close to 28 employees. And then 28 went to 50 to 100. And then, within about a year and a half, we were at about 300, at about the 200 mark. And now 2.5 years later, we're over 300. So there's your examples.
But you've got to do it profitably, don't you? I mean, that's the big concern is founders want to maintain their lifestyle and their own paychecks, but they've got to kind of push that off if they want to see the big picture. Exactly. And yet you're to me, it's risky in 2 areas, but I can see how it works. Number 1 is getting the right people on board that quickly and not having to hire and fire to make that happen. And maybe you do. And then number 2, of course, the pure cost of getting those people on board, salaries, benefits, and whatever. You got to have a pretty decent income stream, especially if you're not taking VC money to do the blitz scaling.
Sure, but here's a couple of hacks around that. Like you could outsource, instead of you said employment, you can outsource to places like the Philippines, where we have, I think the number now is about 75 people from the Philippines, awesome team members working for us at a greatly reduced rate than what it would be here in North America. And we also, another secret I'm going to tell you is where we founded the company in Montreal. That's actually a hidden gem in a sense that, and here's why, and I'm giving away my trade secret, but whatever. In Montreal, there's a ton of Anglophone talent. So there's 2 big English schools. There's McGill University and Concordia. And those schools churn out English speaking employees, but guess what? In where it's located in Quebec, the big companies can't and won't hire only English speakers. So these kids get out of school with high degrees, basically unemployed. They can't find work because it's a government mandate to push the French language. And so if you have a company set up there, you can easily hire these people. If you have a great story, great growing company, you can hire some amazing talent for, not so high of a nut. So you can keep your costs down those 2 ways. I just gave my secret away.
Well, that's what the show's all about, man. So I really appreciate you doing that. Now, you would think this would be coming from an Irishman, but it's actually coming from a Frenchman with the last name of the luckiest, right?
That's right.
Lachance. Yeah.
But what's funny though, Park, is on St. Patty's Day, I changed my name from Lachance to Chance, so it's good.
I like that. Hey, man, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really enjoyed the conversation and getting to know you, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Park, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you all for listening to this edition. Hey, go and take his luck quiz. I really enjoyed it. And it's pretty fascinating as you go through and answering this stuff. It's a nice little self-inspection of where your brain is right now and what you're doing, and some areas that you're probably, leaving a lot on the field or a lot on the stage and not on the field. That in taking the quiz will help you sort that out, and it'll give you some good ideas on what to do about it. And if you liked what you heard, certainly share this episode with friends, family, colleague, anyone that you know that would benefit by getting a little bit luckier through a lot more effort that is very focused to master your internal stories, your external stories on how you show up, and actually taking that action. The I plus E plus A equals luck. Love that. And if I can help you, I will take the luck out of your storytelling by helping you grow from an intuitive to an intentional storytelling using any of my 3 story frameworks. Come on over to businessofstory.com. And if you haven't yet taken the quick online courses, the ABTs of selling and or the ABTs of branding, you can check those out right now at businessofstory.com/ABT. It's all of a $35 investment, and within 30 minutes, you will have a really great understanding of how you can apply this messaging marvel, this agile narrative framework to all of your communications to help you get, even luckier in how you connect with and convert that prospect sitting across from you. So check it out, businessofstory.com/ABT. And until next Monday, when we'll have another story artist right here for you like Mark, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make sure that's a great one. Thanks so much for listening.